Hey guys, welcome back to Mountaintop 9, and tonight I want to talk about the Slayer album, South of Heaven. Now, this was the first Slayer album that I ever listened to. A friend got it for me at a birthday party when I was a kid, and it made a great impression upon me. The moment I laid my eyes upon that album cover, I was already drawn into a super macabre world. I mean, it just made my imagination run wild. You can't ask for a better album cover than that. It's one of my all-time favorites. So I knew that I was in store for something great. And that was one of the cool things from when I was a kid. That's one of the great memories I have, is of going into the heavy metal section down at my local tape store and just going in the metal section, okay? And looking at the album covers by bands, even bands I had never heard. You know, you couldn't get on like a YouTube, for instance, and sample different bands and see if you liked them back then. You know what I mean? You couldn't hear stuff online. You couldn't go, I'm talking about before the fucking internet. So the only thing you had to go by were magazine articles, or when you would go down to a tape store and look at the album covers. And you know, sometimes something would look really cool, and you'd buy it, you'd spend 10 or 15 bucks on a damn tape, and you'd take it home, and the damn thing would suck. It'd be horrible. You know, that happened every now and then. But in the case of Slayer, they had a great album cover, and the music matched up to it. Let me tell you that right now. The funny thing that I notice when I read about the album South of Heaven is apparently at the time when this album came out, there were some people that were very disappointed in the shift in approach. The fact that they slowed down the tempo on many of the songs, the fact that they introduced some clean guitar work in certain stuff, you know, like in Spill the Blood, and also the fact that Tom was experimenting more with the vocal approach. You know, he was doing a little bit more of a singing, kind of almost a melodic type of approach on stuff. Now, I think it's awesome. I love the direction that this album went in musically. You know, I love Rain and Blood. It's a fantastic album, but they couldn't keep repeating that same formula forever. You know, that album had its moment in the sun. It came out and it blew everyone's minds. You know, you have great songs like Angel of Death and Piece by Piece and Altar of Sacrifice and Criminally Insane, all that great stuff. It's a fun listen. But for me, Rain and Blood's never been my favorite album. And I remember growing up, you know, when you'd read the magazines, they would try to shove that down your throat. Oh, Rain and Blood is the defining Slayer album. And you know, these writers for these magazines, you know, they like to push certain ideas like that. And, you know, sometimes you just got to question this stuff. You got to formulate your own opinion. And I've always held the opinion that South of Heaven is a better album than Rain and Blood. That's just me, you know, that's my opinion. I just think that this album has more to offer. There's so many more moods on display, okay? I love the fact that you have more to kind of delve into. It's not just like blunt force trauma, just a train just hammering you over the head like Rain and Blood is. I mean, that album is just a non-stop roller coaster, just going right off the fucking rails. For me, South of Heaven, it has more of this kind of a sinister thing lurking beneath the surface. There's more atmosphere to it, and I really like that. I love that devilish atmosphere that's on display on South of Heaven. It kind of reminds me a lot of how much atmosphere there was on Hell Awaits, for example. That's another Slayer album that I hold up very high. In fact, if I had to pick my 3 favorite Slayer albums, my 3 favorites in no specific order would be South of Heaven, Hell Awaits, and Divine Intervention. Those are kind of the 3 that I just gravitate towards the most. But getting back to what I was saying about South of Heaven, I just love the way you can lose yourself in this album. I feel like it has great atmosphere, just like Hell Awaits did. Another funny thing that bothers me, though, is the fact that Kerry King himself, he doesn't even think highly of this album, you know? And it seems to be coming from a place where Jeff Hanneman wrote a ton of the music on this album. I mean, he wrote the music to the title track, he wrote the music to Spill the Blood, he did Behind the Crooked Cross, Cleanse the Soul. These were songs where Jeff Hanneman was the principal architect of the music, and I just don't feel like Kerry King he just doesn't seem to like the direction of a lot of the songs on here for whatever reason. And that's a damn shame, because Jeff Hanneman was a brilliant songwriter. I cannot imagine a Slayer catalog without the contribution of Jeff Hanneman. Can you? I mean, this guy crafted some metal masterpieces of the highest order. So, you know, that's another thing. Now, I also want to say something about Tom Araya's singing on here, okay? I think it's fucking great. I really love the approach on here, and I think it gives it more of a serious feeling. The fact that he's singing a little bit more on this album rather than just shouting the words, it kind of gives it, kind of, like I said, a serious undertone, you know, like he's singing these things, and believe it or not, it just kind of feels like it adds this devilish conviction. So I like that. And I mean, I much rather hear the way Tom sings on this album than the way he does now. I mean, that shit that he does now, that screaming until he's hoarse, until it feels like the veins are just popping out of your neck, I cannot stand it. It doesn't, there's no ebb and flow to it when you're just constantly screaming at the top of your lungs. And the funny thing about it is, it's not like Tom even did that on any of the old albums. If you put on an album like Seasons in the Abyss or Hell Awaits or even Rain and Blood, you're not going to hear the same vocal approach that he does on the stuff, you know, nowadays, on albums like World Pain and Blood and Repentless and even God Hates Us All. But especially on the last couple albums, he just screams until he's hoarse. That doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't evoke any feeling in me, because, like I said, there's no ebb and flow. On these old albums, his voice had a sinister, serious nature to it, and I liked the delivery, and it sounded like a lot of care was put into how each word was enunciated and put across. And another thing, the lyrics on these old Slayer albums. Yeah, they were singing about all kinds of murderous mayhem and satanic and demonic stuff, and that can be taken as being cheesy at times. But hey, it's a long way from lines like "payback's a bitch, motherfucker," and all this stupid shit that, you know, Kerry King liked to start writing after he became such a big Slipknot fan. Did you notice on God Hates Us All, especially on that album, and every Slayer album afterwards, how the lyrics on a lot of the songs became very asinine and stupid? Well, the great thing about listening to old Slayer albums is you don't have to deal with that shit. The lyrics on these songs are well crafted. They seem like they were written by someone with a semblance of intellect. You know what I mean? So that's the great thing about these songs too. They're well crafted songs, and this album's a metal masterpiece. But without any further ado, let's get right into this album, track by track. The morbid metal madness begins with the title track, South of Heaven, and that opening riff has a very spine-tingling effect. It just paints so many horrific images in your head, like you can just imagine lightning coming down from the sky, and the notes twist and move like hellish mutated abominations crawling through rivers of blood. And when Tom Araya begins to spit out the spiteful lyrics, you begin to feel like the sky is opened up. But instead of a benevolent God coming down from on high, what you get is one filled with cruelty, and he's dishing out non-stop wrath and punishment. And after this dramatic introduction, the song begins to get even heavier, and the tempo ratchets up a little bit, but not too much. This isn't a thrashy opener like Evil Has No Boundaries, Chemical Warfare, Hell Awaits, or Angel of Death. No, this song is more menacing and plotting. It takes its time getting its evil across. This song deserves every bit of praise that you've ever heard heaped upon it. I mean, it has great lyrics, the music is perfect, the performances, everything about this song works. It's just an excellent track, the atmosphere of evil. I mean, it really comes across. It's that polished sound that really does it too. You know, this isn't that murky sound that was present on Hell Awaits. You know, that album had that whole thing going for it, that whole aura because it was more of a dingy atmosphere. What I like about the atmosphere here on South of Heaven is this polished sound actually gives it this sense of elegant evil. It's like this well orchestrated, sinister nature, and I love it. And this song just gets the album off to such a great start, and Tom is just perfect on the vocals. I mean, what a great performance he puts across, that riff, everything about it. This was the song that was my introduction to Slayer, and man, it just lived up to my idea of what Slayer would be. When I hit play and I first heard this song, it was like, it was just instantaneous. The feeling that rushed through my veins, I was like, wow, this is what Slayer is? Well, it makes sense, man, because it lives up to the album cover and it lives up to the band name. So great opening track. You have to love the apocalyptic nature of the song too. It's a really, really imposing song. So great start to the album. The squealing remnants of South of Heaven lead right into the brutal, body-shredding thrash of Silent Scream. And hey, if you needed a pick-me-up after the more mid-paced nature of South of Heaven, this is the perfect blast of energy that you were wanting, because Silent Scream is just classic thrash, and it's one of my all-time favorite Slayer tunes. This is one that you can just put on, and it's just catchy and memorable. It's fast, and it beats you over the head, but it's one that gets stuck in your brain. The blistering energy and blunt lyrics are just so memorable. That's why you can't get this one out of your mind. And Dave Lombardo, he just gives a total clinic on how to pound the drums like a beast. Lombardo's performance on this album, I think it's mixed perfectly, because his drums are just right in the perfect spot in the mix, and they just hit you like a battering ram. And the guitar riffing is so precise, and it cuts like a knife. And on top of that, you have the evil sounding lyrics and the way that Tom says them. Stuff like torment, ill-forgotten, a soul that will never rest. The way those words flow from Araya, they are just delivered in such a soulless and calculating way, and the effect is really hard to shake. Overall, I gotta say, Silent Scream is one of my all-time favorite Slayer tracks. Here we've got the album off to a great 1-2 punch. You've got South of Heaven, and then you've got the blistering energy of Silent Scream. What a great start to a great album. I loved seeing this song live. The last time I saw Slayer, they did this one, and it was a welcome surprise, because I had never seen Slayer do Silent Scream at any of the shows that I attended, so it was nice to finally see it in the live setting. So that was a lot of fun. I also loved seeing him play Necrophiliac at the last time I saw him, because that's another one that I hadn't had the pleasure of seeing before. But anyway, Silent Scream, great track. Let's get on to the next song. Track 3 is called Live Undead, and it starts out with a lurching, doom-filled riff, and I gotta say, this is a song that really, it stands out in the Slayer catalog. It's kind of an adventure, this song. It goes through some tempo changes here and there. It's not a long song, but it kind of feels like an adventure. It just kind of takes you on a trip, you know what I mean? It goes from like a corpse shuffling crawl at times, and then it'll just shift into nerve-shredding speed. So I kind of like that. I kind of like the highs and lows of this song. And the funny thing about this song is that whenever I hear it, it always takes me back to my school days, listening to this tape in my Walkman when I'd be riding the school bus, you know what I mean? It reminds me of how I'd have this tape, and I'd have Metallica's Master of Puppets, and Creator's Extreme Aggression, and Overkill's The Years of Decay. I'd have all these tapes, and this was kind of around the time I was just listening to a lot of thrash in general. And it just takes me back to that time, staring out the school bus window and listening to thrash, so I really like that feeling. It does bring back nice nostalgic feelings, but when I push those feelings aside, I have to say, this song overall, it's mediocre. This isn't a standout song on this album. It doesn't reach the lofty heights of the title track or Silent Scream, for example. You know what I mean? This song is just okay. There are some cool moments, though, here and there. there. Like I said, I like the fact that it's kind of an adventurous song, and I also like that nice moment when Tom Araya, he hits that high note in there. You know, the kind of high notes that he used to do back in the early days of the band. I like that part, but overall, Live Undead is just a so-so track. You can either take it or you can leave it. Next up is Behind the Crooked Cross, and this song kicks the tempo up once again. We've got some nice heavy machine gun riffing, and Tom Araya, he delivers this catchy and almost laid back vocal performance. It's very interesting the way he delivers the lines on this song. He's detailing these very violent and dark things, and he's doing it in a very passive way. And I think that creates a nice kind of paradox, you know what I mean? Like, and this song just has so many vivid lines, like March On Through the Rivers of Red, you know, stuff like that. So it definitely has that serious tone that I was talking about earlier. You've also got classic Slayer-style dissonant guitar leads just flying at your face, left, right, and center. And overall, this song is just a nice, quick blast of energy. It's just a really nice pick-me-up after the more adventurous nature of Live Undead. You know, this is one that gets forgot about a lot by Slayer fans. You don't hear too many people go, yeah, Behind the Crooked Cross, that's a very underrated Slayer song. But I really feel that it is. I feel that this is one that kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. It's another very memorable song from Jeff Hanneman. I mean, he was on a goddamn roll at this time. He was just churning out metal classic after metal classic. So yeah, I definitely highly recommend this track, Behind the Crooked Cross. It's another standout song on this album. Alright, now we've reached track 5, and it's called Mandatory Suicide. And I gotta say, this is one of the most overrated and overplayed songs in the entire Slayer catalog. The band must enjoy playing the damn song because they've done it at every goddamn Slayer show that I've ever attended. I just don't get why people like this song so much. Sure, it starts out with a suitably evil sounding riff, but I mean, the riff isn't as good as like South of Heaven, for instance. It's nothing like that. It's just purely functional. I would say it's mediocre. It gives off a somewhat evil flair, but it's not that damn good. Overall, I just think this song is kind of boring. It reminds me of something like Expendable Youth off of the Seasons in the Abyss album. You know that song? Or Skeletons of Society. You know, these are boring songs. You know what I mean? They're not really engaging. They don't have any flair to them. You know, the best thing about Mandatory Suicide that I can say is I like that section towards the end when Tom is detailing the carnage of war, and he's doing it in this spoken word fashion, and it gives the song a very sober, serious undercurrent. I like that. I like the macabre nature of it. But like I said, this song is just kind of boring. It just doesn't do much for me. And I really do think it's one of the most overrated Slayer songs there is. I mean, I really don't think they should play this at every damn show. I think it takes up room where another good song could be played. Another funny thing that I want to point out about this song, and I often wonder if anyone else, if this ever occurs to anyone else, but there is a riff in this song right before Tom starts singing at the beginning. There is a riff that kind of reminds me of some of the riffing in For Whom the Bell Tolls by Metallica. Now, the notes aren't arranged in the exact same way, so I'm not saying the riff is a ripoff. I'm just saying that the riff very much puts me in mind of a certain section of For Whom the Bell Tolls. And I think that's funny. You'll know the riff when you hear it. It kind of has this For Whom the Bell Tolls kind of feel to it. But yeah, man, Mandatory Suicide, this just isn't one that I find myself gravitating towards. It's usually one that I kind of put on in the background, and I don't really get back engaged in the album until the next song comes on. And that's the one we're going to get to next. Next up is a furious piece of thrash called Ghosts of War. And I gotta tell you, when I was a kid, I would often think that the beginning of this song that my tape was broken. I didn't realize that it was intentional, the faint sound at the beginning of this song. And when I was a kid, when I first got this tape, I thought the damn thing was broken when this song started. And then suddenly, though, the volume, shifts up and it hits you square in the face. That's what makes such a great impression, because this song is just a no-holds-barred piece of speed. It's right to the point, and it really gets your blood pressure back up after the more slow and mid-pace of Mandatory Suicide. This song gets the energy level back up through the roof. This song is just a scorching piece of work, and Lombardo's drumming, it's insanely good. You've also got the fast, on-point guitar work from Kerry and Jeff in there, and then Tom just delivers another spectacular vocal performance on this song. I love that crushing end section where he's saying, "I deal in pain." It's just so great. This is just another standout song on the album. Track 7 is called Read Between the Lies. And, lyrically, this song is all about TV televangelists, much like Metallica's Leper Messiah and Black Sabbath's TV Crimes. So it has that whole thing going on, and it has some great lines, I must say. I mean, they really stick in your memory bank. Lines like, "They claim your trip to heaven's nearby. You may believe it, but Satan won't lie." Stuff like that. And it's just delivered in a very catchy way. Like I've said over and over, this album, the performance that Tom delivers on this album, it's just very catchy. And that sounds odd when you're talking about a band like Slayer. They were, one of the pioneering extreme metal bands. So it's kind of funny when you say something like the vocal performance is catchy, but it's true. Tom really made sure that these words stuck in your mind. And this song, it's not a fast song, but it's not a slow song either. It's a mid-pace thing, and I really like the dissonant, dark riffing in certain sections of the song, like when Uriah is saying stuff like "save me." When he does that line, there's some really cool dissonant riffing going on in there, and I really like that. It adds a nice bit of shade. I like the added color that a riff like that has, because it just adds more to the flavor of the song, when you shift up and you add dissonant sounding riffs like that. Read Between the Lines is a very interesting song, and it's definitely one that you want to crank up and give a few listens to. It's one of those songs, it's a deep album cut, and it's a damn fine one at that. Cleanse the Soul is track 8, and I gotta tell you right now up front, I like this song a lot. And the funny thing is that Kerry King, apparently in interviews, he likes to say that the riffing to this song sounds happy. He says that main riff there at the beginning, he says that it's a happy sounding riff. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. If he thinks that the riff in Cleanse the Soul sounds happy, then he must think that the riffing in the next song, Dissident Aggressor, he must think that that song sounds like a fucking Disney movie. Because I don't hear it. I personally do not hear any happiness represented at any point in this song. And I think this is another solid example of good writing from Jeff Hanneman. I think the music in this song is right on point. It's a real thrasher, and the guitars, they cut and stab with horrific precision. And the drumming is just absolutely thunderous, of course. But my two favorite elements of this song have always been the vocals and the lyrics. Just the words alone are so vivid, and they are a prime example of classic satanic Slayer. The Slayer that everyone was afraid of back in the 80s. Lines like "empty altar awaits its victim, stained glass windows black. Candles burn the midnight oil, incense fills the night." Just stuff like that, and the way that Uriah spits those words out, it's just pure, like I said, it's just prime satanic Slayer. It's the kind of stuff that creeped people out back then. Like when I was a kid and I heard a song like Cleanse the Soul, it was the kind of thing that got under my skin a little bit. And just the overall sound of it, the lyrics, the delivery of the vocals, and then the music, it really came across in a very serious way. Like, it didn't sound cheesy, okay? It wasn't like a cheesy horror movie. It was more like a serious, creepy horror movie that got stuck in your mind, okay? The kind of stuff that gave you the creeps. So yeah, you know, Kerry King may not like this song, but I think it's a damn fine Slayer track, and it's a perfect song for an album like South of Heaven. Track 9 is called Dissident Aggressor, and it's a Judas Priest cover. It's a song that was on the album Sin After Sin, and I gotta say, I don't even really care for the original that much. For the original track, for the original version, and this Slayer cover, it doesn't really do it any favors in my opinion. I feel like this song is just very out of place on the album. It's not, I mean, this isn't a bad song or anything, but it's not one that's ever really done much for me. And the words are just kind of cheesy, you know, the stab, fight, you know, it's just very cheesy sounding, and it just doesn't do anything for me. And I love Judas Priest. This isn't a knock on Judas Priest at all. It's just a very interesting song choice, in my opinion, as a song to cover. I guess from what I've read, Jeff and Kerry, they were both fans of this song, and they just thought it'd be a cool one to throw on the album. My favorite part of Dissident Aggressor is there's like a bridge section towards the end that I really like. I kind of like the riffing in it, because it kind of reminds me, it has this dark, ominous kind of doomy feel, kind of reminds me of the ending to Lord of This World by Black Sabbath a little bit. It kind of just has that kind of feeling to it. But other than that, Dissident Aggressor, I can take it or leave it. The final track on this album is called Spill the Blood, and it brings everything to a very chilling conclusion. I've got to say, Jeff Hanneman went above and beyond when he crafted a song like this, because what it did is those evil, clean-picked notes, they have this very cascading, sinister nature to them, and they really just give you this nice contrast, because when the heavy, crushing, distorted guitar kicks in, that juxtaposition, it makes the distortion seem even heavier. It makes it seem more crushing. And that's what I like about it. The light and shade. You know, it works so well. And the clean notes, I don't understand what anyone's beef would be with that, because those clean notes, they sound very evil. They really do. Don't you like the atmosphere that it creates? This song, just from the moment it starts, creates such an otherworldly, ritualistic atmosphere. You really feel like you're getting sucked in to some kind of satanic horror film. Just like Cleanse the Soul, this song kind of delivers more of that same atmosphere. And the production, it's so polished, so every note is heard with full clarity, so it just makes it seem so opulent and grandiose. Like I was saying when I was talking about the title track, that song seems very evil in an elegant way. Well, it's the same thing with Spill the Blood. And the lines in here, the lyrics in here, you can't get any better than, you know, when he's saying stuff like, spill your blood, let it run onto me. It's extremely macabre, but it never crosses over into the realm of cheesiness. It's pulled off in just a perfect way, and it just brings the album to such a pitch black, evil conclusion. I really love this song. Spill the Blood is a classic and a great way to end the album. And it brings back great memories for me also, because I had one of the Slayer shirts that I used to have was a Spill the Blood shirt. That shirt probably goes for a lot of money nowadays on eBay. I don't even have that damn shirt anymore. Who knows what the hell happened to it. I also used to have one of those Root of All Evil shirts, you know, the one with like that green demon monster on the front, and then on the back it said Root of All Evil. I loved those old Slayer shirts. There was nothing like a classic Slayer shirt from back in the band's prime, you know. Those shirts just really, you know, they just summed up the whole aura that the band was going for back then, and, you know, just with the classic Slayer logo and just no bullshit, the artwork, everything. And yeah, man, so before I get off on a big tangent, I just want to close this out by saying, once again, coming full circle, South of Heaven is one of the best Slayer albums of all time. There's no doubt about that, and I just don't understand how anyone could deny the creepiness that's on display in songs like Spill the Blood and in the title track and in Cleanse the Soul. And then you've got great deep album cuts like Read Between the Lies, and you've got awesome thrash like Silent Scream and Ghosts of War. This album has something for everyone, in my opinion. This was Slayer in their prime. So yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. I had a lot of fun doing it. I'll be doing many more Slayer reviews in the future. I don't know when I'll get to the next Slayer review, but I'll try to do one before too long. I'll try not to wait too long. It takes a while to get all these videos made. I have so many videos that I'm constantly working on. But if you like this, click like, leave me a comment, let me know what your thoughts are on the album, what your favorite South of Heaven tracks are. I'd be interested in hearing and kind of getting an idea of what, you know, people think are the most memorable tracks on this album, or what are songs that you don't like. I mean, you guys might love the Dissonant Aggressor cover. I don't really care that much for it, but, you know, whatever. So anyway, let me know what you guys think, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll be seeing you again real soon.